This will infuriate a lot of people out there, but self-improvement alone will never get you a girlfriend. I know this because I've known personally and worked with a bunch of guys who are deep in the self-improvement space with daily press-ups, cold showers and journaling, but they're still painfully lonely people. And that isn't to say that improvement and self-improvement is completely useless. This channel is quite literally called Honest Improvement, but I've been in that space for over a decade, and I started to realise there are some limitations to it. Self-improvement will make you attractive, but for a guy, being attractive is kind of like having a really great CV or resume, wherever you're from. Lots of people want to meet you, and they'll be really warm and receptive. They'll invite you in. But the moment you sit down in that interview, she starts to notice you can't make eye contact, and you don't really have a lot to say. And it almost feels like you're trying to self-sabotage the interview out of fear of getting the job or the relationship. So that initial impression that you made is become kind of irrelevant at this point. And that's the issue here, because whilst I absolutely recommend self-improvement as a tool, it got me so far, it isn't the be-all and end-all, because the issue is, with relationships, the problem, the root cause, is very often an emotional issue, and that is something that is never tackled, because the problems in relationships, they come down to neediness, approval seeking, shame, and the inability to tell the truth. So when this is how, that big fat guy with the massive gut, how he ends up every single time beating a guy who has a six-pack, who also has crippling insecurities. How many times have you seen it where there is just that, big fat guy who is confident about who he is? Caveat. How many times have you seen it where there is a guy that just appears a bit of a waster, but he has a girlfriend, yet your 1 hour morning routine self is still single and lonely? It's because you've been looking in the wrong place. You're not actually tackling the real problems. You're tackling the sort of side issues. And it can be really easy to fall into this trap, because I did it. I thought if I did enough press-ups, or I did enough cold showers or runs or whatever it was, potentially I'd finally be good enough to get a girlfriend. But it was this mentality in itself that kept me single. And it's never really encouraged to try and embrace these other sides and look for real experiences, because that's what it is. I'm going to dive in this video of where you should be looking instead. Because as I say, self-improvement, it is not useless. It's an amazing thing, but it's not the full picture. And if you want to be the guy that has the relationships whilst he is still chatty as hell and he is working out and doing all these things, this is where you should be looking instead. Because I'll kick this off with something powerful that I came from Dr. Robert Glover, the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy. He identified 3 things that make an attractive man. So, he knows who he is, he knows where he's going, and he has fun whilst he's doing it. Nowhere in there did I see the 1 hour morning routine. Like, a guy who knows who he is, who is emotionally secure and confident despite his flaws, who has integrated them. He's the attractive dude. So how do we approach this practically? Because this is what I've done, and this is what I help my clients do. Firstly, start learning to tell the truth. Because so many guys got caught up in that sort of competitive, status-seeking behavior growing up that they hid so many parts of them they didn't deem to be acceptable, that they'd get bullied for, that no one would like about them. And then they buried it, and they carry the shame about who they are. And one of the only ways to do that is to start being honest, because you have no idea who you are when you lie about your own personality, what it is that you like, what it is that you dislike. You corrupt the ground that you walk on and make it flimsy and loose so you can never stand up and be confident, because the floor underneath you could give way at any moment when people find out about that crippling porn addiction, insecurity you have, or the fact that you're drawn to drinking at night on your own. It's all because you were unwilling to tell the truth. For me, I didn't hit puberty till I was like 17 years old. It was really embarrassing. Like, full disclosure, I couldn't even come. It just like nothing happened. That is so embarrassing. And I didn't tell anyone because I was like, what the hell? I thought I was physically broken and just internalized this true brokenness. And that just led, even when I finally did hit puberty at the fresh old age of about 17 and a half, that I still had this internalized belief that there was something about me that was just fundamentally broken and that I wasn't good enough. And because I never shared that or had anyone to confide in, then it internalized that belief, because it said that, oh, you are too scared of what other people would think to ever tell the truth about this thing that really impacted you and really affected you. It must be really bad. Your like internal watcher is associating you're too terrified that everyone will leave you and no one will speak to you again if you show them this side of yourself. It must be bad, which means you're bad. And this is one of the starting points for most guys that have issues with relationships. It's finding them that one relationship, whether it is like male friend, as a family member, or someone like me, a coach, where we go through and just start to speak to what are the parts of yourself that you've hidden, you've deemed unacceptable. And we start to look at them and see if that's really the correct way of approach, because this is what gets rid of all that shame that's holding you back from being able to communicate who you are in a good manner. Because if you're carrying along all of this fucking baggage, you're so slow and sluggish, people are just like, this guy feels off. On the surface, things look quite good, you know, he's got kind of nice arms, he seems to have it all together, he showers, but something in the energy around him is off. And it's a guy that's never addressed all these like hidden shameful parts he's decided to have about himself. And this is where it starts. And addressing this will get you way further with girls than any bloody intermittent fasting fucking routine ever will. And it also gets you to put your needs first. If you're starting to tell the truth, that also means you're just telling the truth in general, which brings us to us. It means you're putting yourself first in situations where you'd bury your own needs. And I'll use the example of this, that I think like yesterday or 2 days ago, some food came out, the pancakes, like the food tasted kind of great, but the pancakes were clearly undercooked. They were like raw in the middle. And I chose, when they came over to ask how they were, I sent them back rather than being that agreeable loser that I know I can be. And that was important to me because that's the level of personal growth that actually gets you somewhere. Because I decided that it was worth it to me to voice my opinions, that I was worth voicing my opinions, that this just wasn't what I was happy with. And that gave me way more personal growth than reading any bloody book around being someone who puts himself first. There's such a aversion to real life experience now, and it's holding every single one back. There's this idea that you should learn from the mistakes of others rather than make the mistakes yourself. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of make some mistakes. Otherwise, nothing ever solidifies, because otherwise it's just intellectual knowledge as opposed to experience knowledge. You'll understand, how do you operate in a relationship? How do you operate in a friendship? Fundamentally, without these real life experiences, you're just hollow. And people feel that. And there's a hollowness to the self-improvement junkie that doesn't put himself out there with people. The second point that I have is like, do things that actually scare you. Like, it scared me to send it back. I know, that makes me sound like a little bit of a bitch, but it does. I'm naturally just a pretty agreeable person. So I have to really set myself like, cool, I'm doing this because there is something wrong and I'm voicing my opinion of it. Like, most people do things that they claim scare them that really don't. It absolutely amazes me how many guys could do a cold plunge every single bloody morning but can't go speak to that girl at the bar. It's because they're comfortable with this level of discomfort. They claim it's them doing something that makes them uncomfortable. The cold shower. Yeah, Wim Hof, let's do this. But they're super comfortable with this. It's just become normal to them. What would actually push their character forward and make them be the guy that is attractive and able to have a girlfriend and relationships is doing the things that actually scare them, pushing themselves out of their real comfort zone. And that always tends to be something that's real, like an actual experience of going up and potentially being rejected by that girl at the bar. That's what would make a difference here. Not this pseudo discomfort that you're kind of hiding behind. And like, once again, I'm directing this at my arse as well. I did this for like 5 years. But the things that I do now is like, I push myself to go on a 10-day meditation retreat before I even meditated. It was uncomfortable as hell. And it was a real life experience. It was huge. I will go, are we going to do this? So there was a period I moved to a new city and I didn't have any friends there. I was desperately lonely and like my head was just pressed into my mattress for like an hour solid, and I felt awful, and there was no amount of like meditation, reading, breath work that was going to help me in that scenario because I just felt so lonely. The only thing that did help was one night I dragged my arse out into the city centre, and bear in mind it was winter, it was freezing, not many people were out. I didn't speak the bloody language either. And I took myself to a board game cafe because internally I'm still a massive nerd. I went there and asked them, did they have any events coming up that I could join in with? And the bartender was like, oh no, we're not doing any of them at the minute. And I was like, cool, great. That's single, lonely me for another few months then. But instead of going home, I just hit this part of me that was like, right, you're going to make some bloody friends. I looked around the bar and I saw a table of 3 people in a booth and they were playing Catan, a game that I know how to play. And I walked over there and I was like, right, hi, I know this game. Do you mind if I watch you play for like 5 minutes? They partially recoiled. I'm just like, what is this? And there was like a silence and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And eventually one of them, the guy closest, was like, okay, but we speak Bulgarian. And I was like, good enough. I sat in this bloody booth, knowing that I do not speak Bulgarian whatsoever. And they continued to play this game of like moving the pieces around, speaking Bulgarian to each other. And I sort of was half getting a conversation in every few minutes with the one guy that seemed to offer up like a bit of conversation with me. And simply put, that went on for like 15 minutes. And oh my God, how much did I want to leave? I was like, you're breaking every social norm here. You should leave. You should get up and go. But I stayed in it. I stayed in that discomfort all the way through to the end. And at the end of the game, my head still being like, you should go. But instead, they turned to me and were like, hey, do you want to play a game? And I was like, yes, let's do it. And I ended up playing a bunch more games with them that night. They invited me out the next night. We went to play beer pong with loads of people. And literally, due to one horrendous, painful experience where I dragged myself out and put myself into something real, I ended up getting a whole social network after that. And then ended up getting relationships that followed that because I then had this social network that I was confident with that then enabled me to go meet girls in a confident manner. Because I went on a date previous to that meeting when I was still lonely. It went terribly because I was just kind of needy. Like I was really like wanting to make it happen with this girl because I was lonely. As soon as I had the friends, I was able to be my normal confident self. And so many guys get caught in this trap of like, oh, I don't want to go out tonight and go drinking with those guys. I've got to do my journaling. I've got to do my routines. And they miss out on potentially a memory that could last a lifetime. Like, there's a night out where I was singing Taylor Swift Love Story with one of my closest friends, screaming it in each other's faces. And I'll remember that till the day I die. And that was alcohol fueled. It's everything freaking self-improvement isn't. And I love that memory. I tell girls it all the time. And it's something that is core to me. And that's why doing the things that actually scare you, that was such a tangent. Doing the things that actually scare you are the things that truly move the needle and get you into that position where you can have a relationship. Stop doing the false things that don't really scare you. You're like, are you really that scared of the cold shower at this point? Or are you scared to put yourself out there in an honest, vulnerable way and make relationships and address the things that you know you've been hiding from? Like, to connect with others in a real fashion, that's what will change your life. If you've got real friends, that will be one of the biggest helpers in getting a relationship. Because if you're already interacting with people in an honest way and they're real friends and want the best for you, and you're not just hiding who you are, then these are the people that will easily allow you to just meet the right kind of girls and be confident when you do meet them. Okay, next. Take stock of who you really are. Like, as I say, if you're hiding from the problems that you have in your life, like, another one for me was that I'm dyslexic and I thought, like, I need to be perfect, Mr. Self-Improvement. And that meant I always kind of hid that I was a bit useless with writing, let's say, like, and reading. Like, I'm kind of slow with reading and my writing, and like when I text, I occasionally just miss words out of it. And I used to have like shame around that. But I pulled it out and I looked at it and I was like, is this something that I can change? Not really. I'm sure, insert comment of there's a bunch of ways to help it, but like, realistically, not really. Okay, if I can't fix this, then I may as well just accept it and find it funny. And that is what I do now. It's like, I'm a little bit special. Like, if you're receiving a text from me, you'll see the typing thing for way longer than it should be. Because I'm just like rereading this stuff, being like, I missed a word there, I missed a word here. Because I just read it fine in my head. Like, my head fills in the gaps. And that's what most guys need to do, of just go through and take real stock of who they are. Because there'll be a bunch of things about you that, if you were ashamed of them, like, you take them into the light and they are what they are. I'm a Taylor Swift loving fucking 21-year-old virgin back in the day. It's like, you get to the point where you wear your weaknesses on your sleeves and people become so much more attracted to that because you don't communicate a need to be perfect around you. The guy that has to be like absolutely dialed in on perfect and his diet is amazing and all that, it puts a bunch of pressure on everyone around you to feel like they need to be the same. It's like, I'm aiming up high and I'm going for it, but I know I'm not perfect and you don't need to be either. Like, that is one of the biggest problems I think I faced growing up, was that need to be perfect. And self-improvement really, like, digs into that need of being the perfectionist who thinks he's not good enough underneath. But if you do self-improvement, well, you could be perfect. You could have the best routines, have all these things. And fundamentally, that will ruin you. It will not lead you to a happy place. It won't lead you to relationships. Every single study about human happiness over a course of a lifetime has come back with the exact same result, that people's life satisfaction comes down to the quality of their relationships. That's it. That's where it comes down to. So don't sacrifice your ability to have amazing relationships in this one run we get at life, instead of just going off and doing bloody press-ups in the morning. Like, it's nonsense. This is why I've pivoted. This is why I speak more about relationships now, because I know how important they are, and I know how much I suffered with them, and I know how much other people suffer with them, and we're only going to be getting worse. Technology drives us apart, and without these relationships, we will always end up miserable. And the biggest cause for this is what I like to call the deadliest emotion. So, if you want to really dive into this now, there is one emotion that is deadlier than any other out there, And I speak to how you can handle getting over that problem, getting away from it so you can start to have the relationships, because self-improvement is not going to get you there. But this one emotion, if you can deal and process with that, it certainly will. So stop looking at self-improvement. Check out this video where I dive into exactly what you can do to escape that emotion and just start leaning into the person that you really could be and the relationships that you could have and love for the rest of your life.